When Joe asked me to do this, I was so excited to meet you and hear some of your views and the breadth of sort of the work that you've done. And I just wondered whether you'd sort of like talk to us about political focus, because that seems like a major big piece of work to do and quite adventurous and pertinent for this time, and sort of like why you sort of decided to go upon this journey and what sparked it all off, and tell everybody a bit about it really, because
of course. So last year I set up Politico Focus. We set it up as a charity, so like a CIC, and what our aims are really is to provide training, education to people who need it the most about politics, human rights, and voting across the world. Really, we wanted originally to, focus on schools in deprived areas, women in refuges, women in prisons, sort of the people who tend to be most secluded from politics, and the ones who could benefit the most if they were to be able to become active. And it's just like taken off massively. People want it so badly, and I expected it because I knew how many people needed it, but I didn't expect the scale and how quick it would need to be. So at the moment we've just developed an entire enrichment program which deals with everything from how to register to vote all the way to what your human rights are and what they mean, to understanding politicians, their language, what sort of jargon they're using, in sort of all different sessions. And what we aim to do is empower people to not only have this knowledge, but where to go with it and what to do next with it and how to build on it. We really do focus on empowerment. So the term empowerment gets thrown around a lot, and it's not always actually empowering. But what we believe is that if we can teach people how to build on what we've taught them, that's true empowerment. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh no, it's that's a massive undertaking, and I know I saw that you've got like in waiting some of the resources that and I did on one of your podcasts hear that there was some sort of flashcards that you were hoping. Do you want to tell us a bit about that? Because I thought that was absolutely brilliant piece of a resource that as a youth worker I would love to be able to take to my groups and be able to say, right, come on guys, and it all goes around debate. And please tell us about why you feel debate is the way forward.
yeah totally. So we actually have, I think we've got 12 resources that are about to come out. It's just like sort of going through printing and stuff at the moment. So one of them I think you're talking about is we've got a lot of debate packs, and then we've got flashcards as well. So for example, we've got the human rights debate pack, and that includes a set of flashcards, like a kit on how to create a debate within a group. So you've got flashcards that will contain opinions which then can be challenged or could be built upon. We've got flashcards that will say what a human right is, and give examples, and then it will encourage a group of like young people or just whichever group you're working with to be able to explore their own opinions to be able to listen to other people's opinions and then really get a feel for what they believe. And then also it challenges their own opinions, which can be so helpful in their own journey in learning about life, in politics, in human rights, in voting, in feminism. So I love debates. I thought, like, when I was at uni, debates is where I would learn like the most, because you've got so many different opinions.
Yeah, it's definitely, I know in school it's all about just be quiet and just don't talk or anything, and we don't, and often debates just come out in social media rather than actually face to face, and it's a completely different thing. Writing, you know, you've got a blog and things like that. I'm just thinking that, you know, some of the writers here are writing fiction and things like that. What would you say some of the differences are when you're writing? Because you're still writing, if you're writing what opinions and things like that, you're still having to set a scene for tools, and writing textbooks, it's all still writing. You know, how do you approach that? Because it's a very factual way, but you also got to engage somebody as well. So how do you go about that?
Yeah, so I find the best way to engage people is to make your writing accessible. We don't want to have like loads of big words that most people can't understand, or that they have to end up Googling and then they lose their like attention or concentration on what it is, the point that you're trying to make. So all of our writing, we make sure it's easy to read. I don't use like political jargon, which is a lot of politicians will use to make themselves sound clever. And a lot of this stuff isn't that complicated, but they use complicated language to make working class people or people who haven't had access to higher education, it makes them feel as though they shouldn't be able to understand it. And then they end up feeling alienated. So so that's probably, if you want your ideas to be read by as many people as possible, if that's truly what you want, you've got to make your writing accessible and try and not be, I guess, pulled into wanting to feel like other academics or prestigious or however you want it. The best thing to do is to make it so that as many people as possible can read it.
Wow, that's really good advice, actually. You don't think of that, you just think, oh God, it's got to be the best, it's got to be. You've not only got political focus going on at the same time, you've also got a stationery products out, which seem to be based around quotes and really, really nice sort of like just sayings that are very feminist and, like Joe said, was out there. How are you managing to do that as well, or is that just a passion project, or what? How did that come about?
Okay, so when I was at uni, I just got so bored with using like just plain notebooks or boring pens or whatever, because I have to really get myself motivated because I have dyslexia as well, so so I have to sort of get myself really motivated, because reading and writing really tires me out. But with like just nice little logos or nice little sayings can really get me motivated. So I set up the Feminist stationery company in February 2020, so just before we went into lockdown. And I make sure that all of my products are ethically made and made from recycled materials as much as possible. And so I have like notebooks that say things like let me have a think, female liberation and world domination, and things like that are just like, oh, that's nice. And then you more sort of want to use it. Mainly it was for me, because I was thinking, oh, I'd love products like this, and I thought, oh, maybe other people would. So I set up the Feminist stationery company, put a bit of my student loan sort of which was a bit of a risk, into buying things to get them printed on, and then hoped that people would want to like buy them as well, and then they did, so it worked. And then I'm still making products now.
So tell us about your wandering womb.
Okay, so I think it was the end of the first lockdown. Jess and I, we just thought, oh, we should do a podcast, because we laugh with each other all the time. And we just thought, oh, maybe people would want to like listen to what we talk about. And we named it the Wandering Womb Podcast because years ago, psychiatrists used to believe that
I did look it up. It's amazing. I can't believe that they believe this, but you tell us.
That women would go like crazy and have like hysteria from the womb detaching itself and wandering around the body, and they used to call it wandering womb syndrome, later to be called hysteria. And we just thought, like, let's use that. Both me and my partner are quite anti-psychiatry because of the like misogynistic history of a lot of it. And we just talk like really casually with a glass of wine or two, or some gin or a cocktail, and we just talk about different topics for like 45 minutes. So we've done podcasts on what have we done them on? We do them on all sorts of feminist and political issues. Sometimes we do more personal ones. And yeah, we've got, I think we've gone up to 22,000 downloads now, which is awesome. And we're on the second series, so yeah, we're loving it.
So you've got quite a high profile on social media, and it's one of the scary things for us as at the writers group, being able to put ourselves out there and deal with not only, how do you deal with people who are listening to your stuff, and that not everybody's going to like it, especially if you're very you're very clear about your own opinions. I just wondered, because it also made me think that when we talk about writing, we always think about writing as in written word, and then we talk about it, but actually sitting down and improvising and actually doing a podcast is a new type of writing, almost a writing that's happening in the very moment, and it's putting those thoughts out there in a different format, which is really important for us to use as writers, but scary. I know you've had some really, really awful social media. I just wondered how you might have dealt with some of that, and what you've experienced, and your tips of how to manage the whole social media circus. It's not a big question, but
so I don't have my notifications on for any of my social media, and I have really high filters on my Twitter, so you can mute words and phrases. So I've loads that I've muted. So like I write in like slurs or things like that, and then it just doesn't show you the comments that use those words. So that's really helpful. Try and have a laugh about it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I won't say that it doesn't impact you, because it will. You're human. But try and laugh at the ones that you can, and just think, well, this person has an account like dedicated to giving people shit on the internet. Like you guys are out here writing, exploring your talents, and they're calling you names. Like, so I would say try and sort of have thick skin, try and laugh at it, have a good support network around you, and have high filters so that you can't see the content. And I think one of the best things is turning your notifications off, because if you've ever had sort of a shitstorm on Twitter, you'll know that it comes in waves, and sometimes an entire wave can come and go, and if you've not checked your phone, it's gone, and you don't need to worry about it. Whereas when you're getting the notifications through, you're thinking, oh, I should respond to this, oh, I should respond to this, oh, look what someone's called me. Like, that's not true. And they've said that I've said this, but they've totally taken it out of context. Whereas if you just leave it, they move on to someone else. Like, you're not important to them, because all they want to do is just get a rise out of someone. So yeah, just try and ignore it if you can. Be selective in what you respond to, and put sort of filters on that mutes horrible words, really.
What can men do? What can men do, and what should men do to basically just give women and women's thoughts and voices and ideas and rights the absolutely vital oxygen that they need? Give men as many tips and advice and thoughts that you can now, because there are men listening here. Tell us what you would like us to do, what you want us to say.
Okay, so I guess, like, if you see misogyny sort of like in a meeting or just in general life, or like with your friends, call it out. It's one of the best things you can do, because when men see other men challenging it, it doesn't come across as, oh, it's just a crazy feminist talking like about feminism again. So that can be quite helpful. One thing this is quite controversial, not so much within second wave feminism, but more within like third wave liberal feminism. I would say I would never encourage men to speak at feminist events, just because there are so many women who don't ever get to speak at them, who do amazing work. And then to have like sort of men having the platforms, I would say, if you can, always try and give the platform to like a woman. Obviously, like if there's like something specific that you want to talk about, then definitely find a place for that. But I think it's always good to try and help other women who would perhaps otherwise be silenced, get them a platform. So for example, I know a woman who does incredible work on anti-FGM and campaigning, and she doesn't, like, it's only recently that she would get platformed, because in her own sort of community she's faced so much like hatred and threats, that we would need to platform her in other ways. So making sure that all sorts of different women can get the platforms, rather than just like a man who is a feminist, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think the best thing you can do is call out misogyny when you see it, especially in everyday life, because it happens all the time. Like all the time, pretty much every political meeting that I've been in, I've seen it. So yeah, that's probably my advice.
Where does cultural appropriation start and stop for you? And is it okay, because say even for me as a poet, one of the characters I have made a hermaphrodite, and I've taken on that character and I've written it from that perspective, but can I really embody that voice? So I just wondered what your thoughts were around that sort of issue, because it's quite controversial, and yet we do it all the time as as fiction writers.
I don't know why it's so controversial at the moment. I think it's one of those things where, like, at what point can we stop like creating art? Like, I think it's just going too far. Like, for sure, like, talk to people who you might be basing your characters on, something like that. Trying, you might want to get a viewpoint from them, but at what point do we start being like, oh no, actors can't be actors because like only lesbians can play lesbians, or like, you know, and things like that. I think a lot of it's gone too far, with, you know, being like, oh, that's offensive, oh, that's like appropriation. And I think some things for sure are, but some things are more appreciation than appropriation. And, you know, as a writer, you don't want to be like, oh, I'm not going to include any people of this sexuality because I'm not that sexuality. Because then people be like, oh, why aren't you including them? It's one of those things where like,
yeah,
you can't win. And it's really impacting the arts, I think, like from the arts to comedy, like, you know, writing, poetry, stand-up, films. So yeah, that's sort of my opinion on it. Other people have different views, but I think a lot of this is going sort of too far, and people, we thrive on being creative, and society thrives on being creative and pushing boundaries, and that's where we you know, we make so much more progress in art, in theatre, in writing. So yeah, that's my opinion.